Great. I will also take over the share so that we can see what we have in today's agenda, and then we can get started. Please confirm me when you all can see my screen.
Yes.
Great. Okay, again, a warm welcome, greetings from my side. This is Gaurav speaking, and welcome to the Garage session for the month of August. In today's Garage session, we will be talking about how to build an event-driven architecture with business actions enabled on top of SAP BTP. In the backend, we will be also seeing how this use case leverages other hyperscalers like Azure and AWS for that matter of fact. This is just a showcase. So showcase if your scenario is leveraging other hyperscalers like GCP, that can also be possible. But yeah, for this scope, for this use case, Azure and AWS. But before we start, I would like to explain what is the motivation behind conducting these SAP Garage series on a monthly basis, and the idea behind them to enable the ecosystem of the partners as well as customers to get to know how easy it is to build solutions on top of BTP. Obviously, with the use cases that we are publishing on SAP Discovery Center, we also invite. Okay, I would be requesting the non-speakers to mute themselves so that the recording is crisp and clear for the others participants. Great. So yeah, where was I? I was speaking that in the garage, our whole idea is to invite experts from different fortes to come and explain you this use case, show you the demo of these use cases. So for that, we have two experts joining today for this session, Praveen and Ajit. Praveen is a development expert and Ajit is an architect from the platform adoption and advisory team at SAP. So let's see for today's use case or today's mission is something that is, we'll be looking at this event-driven action framework where we are developing an event-driven app on top of BTP, and the experts will be explaining how the nitty-gritties of this use case works along. And I would be for that part, I will be handing it over to them. But who we are having in Garage session today, obviously you have heard me. This is Gaurav speaking, your host. I would be also joined by my colleagues, Andreas and Nisboy, who would be also supporting you if there are some questions down the line. I have two experts, Praveen and Ajit, and obviously the forum, you folks, who makes this Garage a happening session month on a month basis, year on year basis. So a deep gratitude from my side and other as well to make this Garage a huge success. If you have some use case which you want to see in this Garage, please let us know in the chat or via email, and we will try to bring out that use case. With that, I would hand it over to Praveen and Ajit to take it over from here and then walk us through this nice use case. Praveen and Ajit, over to you.
Thanks, Gaurav. Yeah, I will just share my screen. Please let me know once you're able to see it.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for confirming. Welcome you all to this SAP Garage session on event to business actions. So, as Gaurav mentioned, myself, Praveen, I'm working as a development expert in SAP BTP platform adoption and advisory team, and I have my colleague Ajit, who is also an architect in our team, and we both will take you through this particular presentation. So to just set the context, right? So in various industrial processes, in factories, plants, warehouses, and logistics, there will be like lot of machines and lot of equipments, and then you have a lot of vehicles that are connected and they are participating in these industrial processes, and they generate critical events from these uh, industrial systems, like via could be via IoT platforms or could be via the sensors that are connected to these vehicles and to these machines, and all these sensors that are generating these critical events, they need to trigger, there is a need to trigger business processes as a response to these events in SAP systems. So the example business scenarios could be you have a inbound of raw materials, say a handling unit or a vehicle enters a warehouse. Then the action could be you post a corresponding goods receipt in SAP S/4HANA system. So this is one example of a business scenario where you have an event that is getting generated and that event is getting translated into a corresponding business action. In this case, goods receipt. Right? So similarly, in the supply to production scenario, there is a Kanban container that is scanned and your Kanban status is updated in S/4HANA. Or your product is moving through production and the production process is tracked. Basically, how the production is happening and all the events that are generated, they are being tracked. And in the assembly, there is a cycle counting and your inventory is corrected. And once the goods are finished, you are packing the individual product into handling unit and you update the delivery status in S/4HANA system. And similarly, for outbound logistics, the HU unit leaves the warehouse, then goods issue is posted as an action in the S/4HANA system. So these are some of the example business scenarios where, because of an event that has occurred, there is a corresponding action that needs to be triggered in the business system. It could be S/4HANA, or it could be CX system, or it could be any system. So here we are introducing this event to business action architecture or framework that helps in enabling this translating the events that are happening into corresponding business actions. So this is an open source framework for architecture on the SAP BTP. It can integrate events generated from various SAP non-SAP platforms and solutions into SAP business processes. And this framework is designed for extensibility. Source events and target SAP applications are configurable. So as I mentioned, you can configure events coming from various different sources, and also the actions for the business systems also could be configured accordingly. And the source events could be from IoT platforms, mobile, industrial production, the sensors attached to the machines, logistic platform, and so on. Right? And what does this framework provide? It provides out-of-the-box UI for your actions, business rules, and your service definitions. It also allows the user to design the orchestration and chaining of actions based on the events. So what do I mean by chaining of actions? So basically, suppose you want to create a purchase requisition because you're, like say, in the manufacturing process, your material is low and you have to trigger a purchase requisition creation so that the supplier can come and refill. So in that case, to create a purchase requisition, it's not that the machine can send all the data. Maybe you require, say, the material information, or you require some other information that is present in S/4HANA. So you can change this particular action as a pre-action, so that first that particular pre-action gets executed, it gets all the information, and then you can trigger the purchase requisition creation. So this way you can change the actions, and this framework allows this chaining of actions. And this is applicable to multiple scenarios, such as intelligent replenishment, connected manufacturing, connected logistics, and customer service. So it could be service ticket creation in the CX system. Right? So it's a very generic framework approach, which you can customize or you can use it for any of your business processes. So getting into further details on this event to business action framework. So this leverages Azure IoT, AWS IoT, or Telco IoT. You can leverage it with the device cloud or any RFID or any sensor that is connected to your industry process. So in this example, that architecture that we are showing, you can see that there are these factories, plants, warehouses, they are connected, and the machines are having the sensors, and they are sending the data to, in this case, assume it's Microsoft Azure. So they're sending it to Azure IoT, And in Azure IoT, like you have the rules configured to trigger the action accordingly, to trigger the event. So you have two scenarios, like you have an inbound scenario where the event is generated from these warehouses and the sensors that are connected to them. And from there, the event is propagated to SAP Business Technology Platform. And this particular event to business action framework will help in translating that event into a corresponding business action in the SAP business system. And also this framework provides an option for the outbound scenario as well. Similarly, like once your action is created, you can probably you want to do like notify a particular system that your purchase requisition is created. So even that thing is possible to configure in this framework. So the similar approach or architecture you can follow for AWS IoT core as well. So we have the corresponding steps listed in the Discovery Center mission and the blog post GitHub code that we will be sharing at the end of the session. So the same approach, as I mentioned, you can even do with the telco IoT platform as well, or the sensor device cloud or RFID. So this framework is generic enough to take events from any of the platform and then translate into corresponding business actions. So this is the reference architecture with Azure Hyperscaler. So here on the left-hand side, you can see the factories, warehouses, logistics, and these sensors that are connected to these factories. And they are sending the data to the Azure IoT. And from Azure IoT, the events are getting generated. Like suppose the event could be a low stock event, as I mentioned. That low stock event could trigger a purchase requisition. Or the event could be, suppose say your machine is malfunctioning, and then you need to trigger a service ticket in a CX system as a corresponding action. So all these events are being captured from the Azure platform to SAP Event Mesh, and from SAP Event Mesh, the events are processed by this event to business action framework, which provides, like say, you can configure and customize these actions accordingly, and then these actions are basically triggered in the corresponding business system. And the connectivity, if you are using the SAP BTP and the S/4HANA system on Azure Private Cloud, then you can use Azure Private Link as the connectivity. Or if it's a S/4HANA on on-premise system, then you can use Cloud Connector to connect to this S/4HANA system. And this is the architecture with AWS. So it's actually everything is similar. Only the components that are being used is different. In AWS, we are using the AWS IoT, and all these industrial equipment, they are connected to AWS IoT, and from AWS IoT, we can send the events to SAP Event Mesh via the Amazon SQS and the Amazon Event Bridge. And once the event is received,
yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, Praveen, you can continue. There was this background noise from the non-speakers.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. And once the event is received at the SAP Event Mesh end, then it will be processed by this event to business action framework, and accordingly, that corresponding action will be triggered in the S/4HANA system. Yeah. Now I'll hand over to my colleague Ajit to take you through the demo flow and the demo scenario.
Thank you, Praveen. I hope you can hear me.
Yep, crisp and clear.
Yeah. Cool. Let me start with sharing my screen. Okay. Hi, Hi, my name is Ajit, and I'm your co-host for rest of this mission, and I'll walk you through the demo part of this one. Before I jump into the demo part, let me just summarize what Praveen has explained, that critical events are getting generated in your industry business processes from your devices, which may or may not connected to a IoT platform. If it is connected to IoT platform, the events can be forwarded from either from your devices or from IoT platforms running on Azure or AWS or the other clouds that Praveen has mentioned already. And those events can be forwarded to our framework, wherein our framework reacts to those events and redirects the events information to make some actions happen in SAP or non-SAP systems, be it S4 system or CX system or any third-party system. Okay, so that is the quick summary of the mission. And coming to the demo part, today we will see how the Azure IoT events, which the events are coming from devices from your industry processes, and how that event can be forwarded to our framework, and at the end it creates some business actions in SAP S/4HANA. So that is what I'm going to show in next 10 minutes. So the demo flow starts with, you have a okay. You have a plant where your machine is running, and the machine is, or your device is connected to the Microsoft Azure IoT central platform, and the device is sending continuously events that, this is some kind of parameter from the device coming to the Azure platform. Now in the Azure platform, you are determining using some decision rules, telling that, okay, the stock for the inventory or the device has gone low. Now this event has to be forwarded. From there, we have connected Azure system to SAP BTP, our event to business action framework, wherein the event comes to the event mesh, and our CAP application that is part of the framework is the reacts to the event, and in the end creates a purchase requisition for filling the device. So this is the process that I'm going to show. In addition to that, I will show you the framework a little more in depth. What are the setup details that you need to do as part of the framework, and how flexible it is to connect to different systems like S/4HANA or CX systems. Now I'll jump to the system. So this is Azure IoT Central system, wherein we have configured a device. Okay, we have multiple devices. So for demo, we'll be using a silo container. It's typically a big, container that is used in different in manufacturing industry to store raw materials, etc. So your device is connected to the Azure IoT platform, and the current status of the device is working. And for the demo purposes, we have simulated the devices, which means it continuously generates the event automatically for us. Okay, when it is connected to live, obviously device will send the data to the platform. Here also, now that the device is sending continuously data, we need to find out when we need to take action from the list of events. So that is where we are using data export, where you will define certain rules to find out, your event that you need to respond to. Okay. And in our case, we are filtering simply that, the device template is silo, and the fill level is, if it is less than 90. For our demo, we have taken 90, but if it is an ideal scenario, you would be like, okay, if it is less than 20%, then we need to fill it up, something like that. So these are the different criteria to identify your event that is that should have some kind of business action at the end. Okay. We are also filtering that, if the device is working or not. If the device is not working, even if the fill level is going low, you don't need to act on it. So such kind of filters you can put in data export of the IoT Central platform, and then the event is getting forwarded to the SAP Event Mesh. Now we are forwarding this using a OAuth 2 authentication mechanism, wherein you can define the details that you get once you deploy our framework on BTP. And you will get the credentials and the URLs, etc. As all you need to do is just configure certain information like URL, and these steps are already explained in the discovery missions. After the call, you can go through the mission and you can try it in your system as well. Okay, now that we have set up the device and seen through that, how we are filtering out the events to send to our event mesh or our framework. Now let's look at the framework, how we can utilize the event to business action framework to kind of react to the event and make some business action happen. Let me just quickly refresh once. Okay, so this is the framework. Once you deploy the framework, you will get 4 applications that runs on BTP. The first one is manage action type. I'll come back to that at the end. In the first, I wanted to understand that there could be many events that is coming from even your IoT Central to the framework. Now, each event might have a different business action to do or to complete. So to determine which event should trigger which business action, you need some kind of decision that you need to make based on the event information. So that is where we are using a business rules capability of business process or automation, wherein you can define different parameters, input parameters, and based on that, you can decide which action to take. Okay, so let me quickly look at that first. So if you have ever used business rules, it's simply that you are creating a rules telling these are the input criteria. Based on that, I will decide which output that needs to be acted upon. So here I will just open directly and then just explain what it does. So if you look at the decision table, the source system is it could be Azure or AWS. In our case, the event is coming from Azure. Okay, and the device is located at plant A, which we see that in the device section we have put the location ID as plant A, which means this rule is meant for those devices which are located in plant A, and the device is silo. Then take this action. Okay, now I will come back. What is that action? It is actually purchase requisition, but how do I get this number, etc. Right? So this is the business rules which determines which actions to take. Now, where are we defining the actions? That again, we have another application wherein you can define what actions to take in which system. Right? So let's look at the purchase requisition first. So as I mentioned, whenever the filling level of the device goes below 90, we need to create a purchase requisition. So here in this framework, all you need to enter is the details of the API that is provided by S4 system. So here we have provided the payload that needs to be sent, and what is the different method to create. So basically these are API details, the relevant API path, etc. Now the question is a couple of things. Okay, if I want to make the payload dynamic, meaning that the purchase requisition should have some information regarding the device, so that I can identify this is the device, right? Which essentially means the event information that is coming from IoT Central needs to be passed to the S4HANA system as well. So this is where we are using some kind of expression mechanism inside the payload. If you look at this part, maybe I'll just a little bit zoom in. So if you look at this part, the payload has this expression syntax like event.data.enrichments.device name, which means we are passing the device name in the payload. So our framework is capable enough to understand this expression and replace with the actual value during the processing of the event. In addition to that, your S4HANA system credentials you should not store in the framework. Obviously, the typical approach is to store the credential, etc., in destination of BTP. So here, if you look at the BTP sub account, we have destinations wherein you can store your S4 system details, right? And you can use this destination in our framework, which means you can change your credentials or system details from development to quality or production without changing anything in the framework. All you need to do is change the destination, and accordingly framework whenever the event comes, the framework reacts, takes action in the business system using this destination. So now I will go back to the configuration. Here we are providing the destination details. Now, this is the main action that needs to happen. However, it is possible that before doing the main action, you might need some other information like master data or some other things has to be done before actually creating the purchase requisition. Also, it is possible to create some post actions. Once you create the purchase requisition, you may need to update the device because already update is in already the device is the field level is low for the device. Then you don't need to keep it running the device. Maybe you can update the status of the device back to the IoT central. So such things also possible in the framework. And this is what Praveen mentioned, that chaining of events, meaning you have a main action that needs to happen, but before that you can do some pre-action and post-action. So in our demo scenario, we are doing a post-action wherein we are updating the device status with the purchase requisition that got created in S/4HANA system, so that anybody is looking at the device or trying to see what happened with the device, they can know, okay, there is some purchase requisition has been created and this is the ID of that purchase requisition. And the pre-action and post-action also defined in similar fashion, that you provide the API details again via the credentials are provided via destination, and similar way you can use expression mechanism to fill in the data that is coming from S/4HANA. If you look at the expression here, we are telling it use the response from the main action, and this is the action that you need to use, and after that you take the results and ID, which is nothing but purchase requisition ID, and replace it in the payload to update the device status. So these are the pre-action and post-action that you can chain into the main action. Now that we have understood, okay, the device is connected to IT Central, and we have configured our rules to determine which action should trigger, and we have provided the action details in Manage Actions app, wherein it should call API of S/4HANA to create the purchase requisition. So that is the flow that we are going to see now. So now let's see whether it is getting exported. So I will just currently the data export or low stock event rule is kind of disabled, so I will enable it, and we'll see what happens exactly, right? So I've enabled it because we are using simulated devices. It takes a minute to generate the event. Let me look at it. If I look at the raw data, it continuously every 1 minute it creates an event. So we just have to wait for 1 more minute to raise the event, and I have put the filter such a way that every event is considered as kind of a low level event, low stock event, and it gets forwarded to our framework. Okay, the event got generated, and if you see the field level is 65, which is kind of simulated that the field level is at 65. Now, if you look at the event is forwarded to the system and it got executed, and the status got changed as well in the device. Refills request created, and this is the purchase requisition. Now we will quickly look at the S/4HANA system whether actually the purchase requisition has been created or not. So 2064 is the purchase requisition that got created. If you see, the device name has been forwarded as well, silo SA001, and the other details also automatically filled. Okay. In the interest of time, I will let it load, and I will just talk about one last thing, one last application, that we have a logs application as part of the framework as well, wherein you can see what happens with the event in case of any errors in your framework or your API is not working. In the case where it got failed, right? You can see the log details. So the event that got triggered just now, we will see the log details for that. That this is, if you see, this is our latest event that got triggered, and I can see exactly what happening step by step. Event is received, and then we call the different business rules, and then what is the payload that should execute. You can see the payload details also in case of, if you want to see the details. This is the plant A of the device location, and this is the device type is silo, and step by step we are storing the log details also, what happens exactly. Okay, so this is how you can identify if any error happens in your processing of the business action. Now let's look at the coming back to the your purchase requisition. If you see, all the details are filled as part of the creating the purchase requisition, and it is waiting. The status is waiting for approval. So this is one of the example wherein we are connected one of the event to a business action or business process activity purchase requisition in SAP S/4HANA system. In similar way, you can connect different events and different actions as well. The framework is flexible enough to connect to any system, and not just in a SAP system. You can connect to non-SAP system as long as you have a SAP, as long as you have API for the activity that you want to perform. Yeah, so this is the demo part of the mission. For the rest of the session, I'll hand over to Praveen to tell you about the resources that we have, that therein you can go through more details of the mission and find out more info and maybe try it in your system. Over to you, Praveen.
Thanks, Ajit. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So this architecture that we have shown, and the demo that Ajit has just explained. So this is validated with entity data. So this is, like say, we developed it along with entity data, and then there is a joint blog post that is published from SAP and entity data side, and you can see the feedback from entity data on this particular the framework that is developed. Yeah, and these are the use case resources. So if you want to build this event to business actions framework, right, on SAP BTP and with any hyperscaler, either AWS or Azure, you have the step-by-step guidance in the Discovery Center mission. You have steps for both Azure and AWS, so you can take a look and then you can implement it. And we have a GitHub repo as well, right? And just click on the Discovery Center mission and just show the mission. Yeah, so you can see this is the Discovery Center mission, and you have the steps as well. So if you want to discover the resources that are being used, and you have the steps for integration with Azure, you have step-by-step instructions for integration with AWS as well. So you can start the mission and you can execute these steps. We also have the GitHub repo. So okay, to the GitHub repo as well. Yeah, so this is the GitHub repo, and we have all the details related to the mission, and then related to the scenario, and the business process is also explained in detail, and you have solution architecture, and you have the sample code as well that is given, that you can just it is open source, so you can take it and then you can customize it accordingly as per. And also there is a 5-part blog post series that is published in connection with the entity and SAP. So you can see, like, this is the part 1, event to business actions. an event-driven architecture to implement Industry 4.0 scenarios. You can see this blog post as well. Yeah, so this is the blog post published by Pawan and Wolfgang from NTT, which explains in detail the framework and the demo, and you have the demo video, and you have all the resources related to this mission and the GitHub code and all the other resources that you require for this particular framework. Yeah, and we have other blog posts also that are published that you can go through, which explains in detail the framework and its application. And also from our team, we have additional use cases that as per like your interest and your requirement, you can go through these additional use cases also on BTP. So you have different use cases, like on DataSphere, you have enable category management with Google BigQuery and DataSphere. And similarly, you have this explore your hyperscaler data with DataSphere, and using federated machine learning libraries for hyperscalers. And this is the event to business action framework that we just explained. And we also have a couple of multi-region high availability architectures of BTP services via intelligent routing. So we have a mission for that as well. So you can go through that mission. And we also have missions on consuming the Azure OpenAI or GPT on SAP BTP using the SAP AI core. So we have a scenario for that as well. So you can go through that. And also we have missions on distributed resiliency of CAP applications and enabling supplier collaboration using Microsoft Teams and SAP S/4HANA. So, and also we have different other missions. So you can go through the Discovery Center, and then you can find all the details related to the SAP BTP and hyperscaler services. And if you are interested to collaborate on this scenario or any other scenario on BTP, you can reach out to Pawan, and you have the Twitter and LinkedIn IDs also. You have the mail ID, so you can reach out to us, and we will connect you, and we can take it forward. Yeah. Thank you very much. Any questions that you want to ask? Please proceed. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Praveen, there's one question I could see in the chat, and the colleague wants to know how we can connect S4 to external e-commerce systems to update order status, inventory management, and etc. That is the query. So yeah, Ajit, please go ahead.
Yeah. So there are a couple of ways. If I understand the question correctly, that in S4 in order status is getting changed, and you want to forward that information to external commerce system. So there are two ways. Either you can again use the event to action framework, wherein you can react to the S4 event and do some action at the external commerce system, or you can use SAP integration suite, wherein the order, whenever order happens, you can forward the information via IDOC or different connection methods to send it to integration suite, and then you can take some actions and or update the status in external e-commerce system. So the I'm assuming that when you mention external e-commerce, it is not SAP commerce system. If it is SAP commerce system, I think already integration flows are available, which takes care of all this already.
Great. Thanks, Ajit. I hope that will answer the query. If you have other pressing questions, feel free to post in the chat. You can also unmute yourself and ask the questions. But thanks, Praveen and Ajit, to showcasing this wonderful use case where we just saw that how businesses can automate these events coming from various hyperscalers, AWS or Azure in this use case that we just now saw. So thanks for that. So
Gaurav, I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So Praveen, Ajit, you showed this business to event framework, right? And it had multiple apps like say actions, and then you had business rules. So these are separate apps, or I can enable the entire framework, in a BTP scenario where I can say I enable this. How does it work? So is it a common bundle which can be enabled together?
So the open source code that we have given, it is a one-time deployment, and it creates all 4 apps for you in a single go. Okay, so you're getting the full framework at once. However, if you don't want, I mean, of course, you can enable and disable because the code is open source, so you can modify according to your need. But it's a single deployment, and you can deploy it on your BTP account, and all 4 apps are available for you.
And these are all Java-based apps, right?
Behind the scene, we have used CAF framework with Node.js, but the approach is same. You could use Java as well instead of Node.js. The framework remains, or the approach, the architecture remains same.
And then this business rules application is the standard SAP application, right? Or is it something which you've built or just enabled as part of your open source? Is it just the app being shown in the Launchpad, or it's a separate app?
So previously, this business rules capability is part of the SAP workflow management service on BTP. But now this has been moved to business process automation, where it is called decisions. Okay, you can use the same decisions from that capability business process automation service, and achieve the same thing. There's no difference as such. But that is not we are writing. We are just using a service from the BTP.
Okay, so it's just a custom tile, and then you're still navigating to the same service, right?
Correct. We are just opening the UI of that decision inside from our framework.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lalit.
Thanks, Lalit, for unmuting yourself and asking the questions. If anyone else has some questions, feel free to post it or unmute yourself.
Great. Hello, team. Sunil here.
Yes, Sunil.
Yeah, this business action framework, is it something that you have built, or is it something that SAP is providing as a part of BTP framework?
Sunil, we have built this framework as a demo use case along with the entity data, and the code is open source. So you can download it from the GitHub freely, and then you can use it. Yeah, but this is not a standard service from SAP as such, but this is a like application that is built out, the framework that is built and then offered as an open source that you can use.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I have another question. Like, and we already have things like say iDocs or RFCs for communication, right? Why should we go for this one? Any conditions or any reasons that we chose this framework for?
So, see, there are 3 things that we need to understand, right? First thing, is identifying the anomaly, okay, or what is the critical event that you want to react to, right? Because devices are sending continuously a lot of events, probably more than more events that you and from that list of huge amounts of data, you need to find out which events is necessary or requires a business action. So that part is typically you will do in IoT in systems or different other IoT providers. But once that event you have identified, now you need to react. But your business action is not happening in your IoT system, right? It is on SAP system, like S4 system or CX system or any other third-party systems. But before making that business action, you need some other kind of data as well, like typically master data, etc. And also you need to decide which business action to do also. For that also you need some other information, because it is not just one type of device or one event that you need to react to. It could be same device, but there are 10 events which leads to 10 actions, or maybe you have 10 type of devices which leads to 10 different actions. So that linkage also you need to do that. So that is where our framework comes into a picture, where it kind of connects your IoT or event systems to your business systems. So that is, I think, that kind of explains the naming of the framework as well. So that is where our framework comes in, and we are built with the framework using all BTP services.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Sunil.
Thanks, Vineet. There was another question that I already see has been answered. Praveen, can you also answer it via audio so that other participants can also? Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, sure. So there was a question on event mesh from S4HANA, and this particular event mesh that we have shown here as part of this framework. So the event mesh is a service on SAP BTP, and we have leveraged the same in this particular framework here.
Which one is preferred? Would you like to comment on that?
No, it is the same actually. So from S4HANA also, when you connect to event mesh, it's the same event mesh that is there on BTP that is being leveraged.
Great, great. Thanks. Any other questions from any of the participants? Okay, there's one more. Can this be achieved using a CI instead of the CAP application? CI, I believe, is crowd integration, but yeah, please correct me if I'm wrong.
As I mentioned, in my understanding, of course, you can achieve it per certain if the number of events or the number of actions that you need to do is kind of limited. But when you grow the list of actions and list of events grow, so storing the information like which actions to take based on which event, that but becomes trickier in cloud integration. You cannot store a long list of information wherein if this event happens, this is the action that you need to take. That is where we came up with this framework. But part of it, yes, you can use integration suite, but it has, as I mentioned, other challenges that how do you take the decision and how do you store the master data that needs to be fetched before actually executing the event. So certain things are little trickier in could be trickier in cloud integration.
Great. Thanks, Ajit, for that. Any further questions? Okay, meanwhile, the participants think of some questions. Let me share my screen and show for the participants who are new to the Garage series and they are curious to how to get started, where is Discovery Center and things like that. So your first step should be browser of your choice. Yeah, just go to browser of your choice and just search for, I would say, Discovery Center. And once it loads up, I would say the first link should be your probable match that takes you to SAP Discovery Center. And once you land up over here, you would see, I would say, two main facets: mission and use cases, services. And as by the name suggests, services is something that are available on top of BTP. All the services that are currently available for consumption can be consumed from here. You can check the pricing details, data center availability, so on and so forth. Missions catalog is something that one of the use cases just now was shown by Praveen and Ajit. But if your scenario demands other scenarios, you want to explore other scenarios, you can come and explore all the missions over here. Just a small disclaimer, I know I'm repeating it myself, but yeah, there's this question which we receive a lot of times, that will my company be charged or will I be charged for starting these missions? So these missions are all free of cost. There is no charge to start these missions. We also try to get experts like Praveen and Ajit to complement these missions and provide you guidance on how to start these missions and complete those missions. So most of our missions are tagged along with experts who have written these use cases. So feel free to consume them. If you're a partner listening to this Garage series, or if there's a partner who is interested to contribute these missions or contribute to Garage sessions, please feel free to reach out and we can get you a slot. Gives you a nice platform to showcase your missions as well. Great. So that was Garage for you. And along with Garage, we have other sessions lined up to help you get started with BTP. And in pursuit to that, we also host other sessions. Garage is hosted on a monthly basis on first Wednesday. We have SAP Screen Personas. We have BTP Forum. We have Build Process Automation Forum. And that's the regular monthly cadence that you can see on my screen. So if any of these sessions interests you, please subscribe or register to these sessions. Great.
Got one question. Can you share the link
please.
to the work zone for Garage? I want to access this PowerPoint.
Sure, I will share that with you, Lalit, in a couple of minutes. Yeah. Great. Along with that, we will be coming back next month as well, but the session that we just now did, there's a repeat for this as well for the Americas and EMEA friendly time zone. So if you joined a bit late, or if there is a colleague of yours who want to join the session, please let them know that we will be running a repeat telecast for this session. Next month, we'll be again bringing a very nice use case, very heavily sought after use case where our experts will be showcasing how we can integrate SAP S/4HANA with Microsoft Teams, obviously via BTP. So that is also one such use case that you can refer. Yeah. So that was all. If you have some other pressing questions, please put them in the chat, and our experts are here for another 3-4 minutes, I would say, to answer your pressing queries. And yeah, I will be sharing the link to the deck as well right away. So Ajit and Praveen, let's wait for another 1 or 2 minutes so that participants can take some time to answer the pressing questions if they have any.
Sure. Yeah.
Thanks. Great. So I think there are no further questions from the participants. I would like to thank everybody who joined for this Garage session today morning, and thanks Praveen and Ajit for taking out time to talk about this wonderful use case. And here I would like to stop the recording, and also a great thanks to the participants for taking out time. Thank you so much, and see you in the next Garage.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Got the link. Sorry, I haven't got the link.
Lalit, I just put it in the chat. Can you
Okay.
see that link? Yep. Thank you.
I don't see that link somehow.
Okay, I'll put it again.
Yeah, thank you.